I wanna be your alien queen. We can ride to the moon in your space machine. You get me in the mood. It feels so fucking good. Just what my body needs. You should know that I don't mind if you wanna love me all night. You should know that I don't mind if you wanna love me all your life. I wanna be your alien queen. We can ride to the moon in your space machine. You get me in the mood. It feels so fucking good. Just what my body needs. You should know that I don't mind if you wanna love me all night. You should know that I don't mind if you wanna love me all night.
Tonight was the post-Full Gear episode of AEW Dynamite coming off of the pay-per-view from Saturday night. It was also the kickoff for this year's Continental Classic, and that was really the story of tonight's show. And also inserting bigger names into the world title picture, which is something that we saw at the end of Full Gear on Saturday night. It's one of the things I like the most about the angle they did to close the show. I know a lot of people didn't like it. It was very polarizing. I actually thought that it was smart for them to do what they did there, because all of a sudden now, beyond just Orange Cassidy and Darby Allin, we have a whole bunch of different people who are in the conversation when it comes to Jon Moxley and the AEW World title. And we had a little bit more of that on the show tonight. But really, the show was carried by the Continental Classic. And it was very much the same thing a year ago. That tournament carried Dynamite right on through World's End. And we got some great matches in that tournament. And I have a feeling it's going to be much of the same, just based on, even just the early matches here and what we saw tonight. It was a good night for three people. It was a good night for Shelton Benjamin. It was a good night for Claudio Castagnoli. And it was a good night in the main event for Brody King, who picked up a win over Darby Allin, who fucked himself up pretty good on Saturday night when he drove that car into the pickup truck in the parking lot. Busted himself open, knocked himself silly, probably concussed himself. And ultimately, the story was, it led to his downfall here on this show. He has nobody to blame but himself. I mentioned Shelton Benjamin. I'm going to start calling him Benjamin Button. This guy doesn't age. He looks as good out there in the ring as he's ever looked. That's what I'm going to start calling this guy. But they earned the first points of the tournament tonight. It was not a show without its flaws, which we will get into here, but it was a definite improvement over the garbage that they spoon-fed us last week. A show that, a go-home show of all things, that was no good and I did not like. They were in Chicago tonight. I should point this out too, because Chicago has really been like home away from home for AEW. You think of home, you think of Jacksonville, you think of Daly's Place, but when I think of home for AEW, I think of Chicago. It's very much like WWE, based out of Connecticut. But for decades, when you would say the home base for WWE, you would think of New York, right? People would call the territory New York. Oh, you're going to New York. And you would think of Madison Square Garden. With AEW, I think of Chicago. Chicago is where they had their earliest events. They've had so many shows, big shows in Chicago, and these great crowds, very enthusiastic crowds. And it's kind of sad, when you look now, you see that they were at the Wintrust Arena in Chicago, which is a building they've run, many times before. And they've put a lot more people into the building than they did tonight. For the number of tickets they had the building set up for, which is about 4,500. I think they had around 4,000. So they came close to filling their allotment, but again, that 4,500 is a lot, less than what you would traditionally see here in this building for an AEW show. And so even in Chicago, even in their home market, in effect, you see a byproduct of what a lot of people, myself included, have been talking about, which is just a lot of fans not as invested in the product as they used to be, because if they were, they'd be at the show. And they weren't, and that's sad, because Chicago is traditionally their strongest market. Although they ran Chicago so many times, what happens after a while is you kind of run it into the ground. So that may be part of what we're seeing here as well. But that was very noticeable tonight, given where they were. Let's talk about this show. This is your AEW Dynamite Thanksgiving Eve review. I'm the Solomonster. I want to take a moment here to wish all of you a very happy Thanksgiving as we are heading into the holiday tomorrow. So if you are going to be traveling, as most of you probably will be if you are celebrating, because it is the busiest travel period of the year. I don't remember if they say Thanksgiving Day or Thanksgiving Eve is traditionally the biggest travel day of the year. It might have been today. But if you're going to be hitting the road, be safe. It's going to be pouring rain here in New York tomorrow, so I'm not looking forward to driving in that. But wherever you may be safe, and hopefully you have a very happy Thanksgiving. Like and subscribe. Super chats are open. As they come in, you will see them popping up on your screen. I did set a goal in the chat. I don't know. Again, people are here for the holidays. Some people aren't. I did set a goal for a bonus Be the Booker. So you can take a look at that in the live chat if you want to try to help us reach our goal for tonight. But let's get into this show here and talk about the Full Gear recap, because they had a Full Gear recap video to open the show, set to Guns N' Roses' November Rain, which Tony Khan did obtain the rights to. And this is the sort of thing that they should do after every pay-per-view, because this was very well done. And it's a good way to kind of bring you up to speed on the key events coming out of the pay-per-view. But then the show opened with the Hurt Syndicate. They were the first ones out. It was Bobby Lashley, Shelton Benjamin, who was the only one in gear, dressed for battle because his match was coming up first. But it was Bobby Lashley, Shelton Benjamin, and MVP coming out. MVP compared his men to Walter Payton and Michael Jordan. I think he mentioned that Lashley was Michael Jordan. High praise for these two. He talked about how his business card is like a golden ticket. And MVP criticized Swerve Strickland for being arrogant. There was a Swerve's House chant that broke out, and he pointed out that Lashley beat the snot out of Swerve at Full Gear. If you don't believe me, take a look at this footage. And he pitched it to some footage of Lashley just basically toying with him and having his way with him at the pay-per-view. He said their mission statement is that they are in AEW to take championship titles and leverage them to make more money and gain more power. He said that they are the merchants of misery. Well, Tony Khan has been a merchant of misery on some weeks with some of these shows. Thankfully, tonight was an improvement. But the Hurt Syndicate are merchants of misery, and they are in the profession of pain. And he said that they hurt people. That's how he ended the promo. Makes sense. I mean, they're the Hurt Syndicate, so they hurt people. Pretty straightforward stuff. And it was in the opening contest, Shelton Benjamin one-on-one with Mark Briscoe. This was a Blue League match in this year's Continental Classic. And with that, let me show you. Hey, Styles fan, thank you for the super chat. I love you solo. It's one of our new ones right there. Let's take a look at the Blue League standings here. If you want to know who is in the Blue League this year, here it is. The current Continental Champion, as you can see, Kazuchika Okada, is obviously in the tournament. We also have Kyle Fletcher. We have Daniel Garcia, who declared the other night. I didn't know you can declare for the Continental Classic. Why everybody else didn't declare, I don't know, but he did. So the new TNT champion is, we got two champions here in this group. Mark Briscoe, Shelton Benjamin, and the Beast Mortos. You know what that means? That means we're going to get a Beast Mortos Kazuchika Okada match. I'm actually looking forward to that. Actually, Beast Mortos against Shelton Benjamin sounds pretty badass too. So that is the Blue League standings for you coming into this tournament. Excalibur did talk about the format and some changes that they have made this year. So like last year, everybody is barred from ringside. The only people who are allowed at ringside for this are the two men in the ring and the referee. And that's it. So when this started, MVP and Bobby Lashley, they had to go to the back. 20-minute time limits for every match. And similar to last year, 3 points for a win, 1 point for a draw. Obviously, no points for a loss. However, this year, instead of just having the Blue League winner go to World's End and wrestle the Gold League winner, the Gold League winner will now face the Blue League runner-up. And the Blue League winner at World's End will face the Gold League runner-up. And the winners of those matches will go on to wrestle each other later that same night at World's End in the finals to crown the new Continental Champion in this year's winner. So basically, if you're going to win this thing, you're going to have to wrestle twice in one night at World's End. And, one thing that I like about that is the fact that, in my predictions when I talked about this the other day, I mentioned that I think the finals will be Will Ospreay against Kyle Fletcher. And that is still my prediction for how the tournament will end. And honestly, if you're going to really go all in on Kyle Fletcher, because he got a huge win, the biggest win of his career at Full Gear, they put him over Will Ospreay. If Tony Khan is serious about going all in on this guy, then what I would do is not only would I send Fletcher and Ospreay to the finals against each other, but I would have Fletcher beat him again. Because what's better than beating Will Ospreay once? Beating him twice to prove that it wasn't a fluke the first time. And I would make Kyle Fletcher the winner of the Continental Classic. But with these rule changes here, what this means is that, we could potentially get a match like Ospreay against Okada at World's End, and then later that same night get Ospreay Fletcher too. So it opens up some more options for some big matches in the tournament to take place at World's End. So I kind of like the change, but that's my prediction. I'm sticking with that we get Ospreay and Fletcher in the final. And like I said, I would have Fletcher go over. And again, I look ahead. So I'm looking ahead to 2025. And very much in the camp of Will Ospreay will win the AEW World Championship at some point in 2025. I'm looking at that Texas show at Globe Life Stadium, All In July. That very well could be where it happens. But I think he will win the title next year. And just think about this. Like Kyle Fletcher goes in there at Full Gear and he beats Will Ospreay. If he goes in there in the finals of the Continental Classic and he beats him for a second time, and then 6 months from now, 8 months from now, Will Ospreay is the AEW World Champion. Kyle Fletcher has a ready-made case for why he should be first in line for a shot at the AEW World title. You run it back again in 6, 8, 9 months, a year from now, whenever it is, Kyle Fletcher is going to be right there banging on his door saying, hey, brother, I didn't just beat you once, I beat you twice. I'm basically the uncrowned world champion, and now you've got a whole program out of it down the road. So to me, if you're serious about pushing this guy, show it. Prove it. Prove to me that you're serious about Kyle Fletcher. You're all in on Kyle Fletcher. You see dollar signs in Kyle Fletcher. Let him beat Will Ospreay for a second time. Now, Mark Briscoe, here against Shelton Benjamin. Mark Briscoe was in last year's Continental Classic, and he didn't do very well. He only got 3 points. So that's one win, and that win came over Jay Lethal, who got no wins in the Continental Classic. He was a loser. And that was about as good as it got for Mark Briscoe. I would have preferred that they find some different people who were not in the tournament last year. I understand why you have people like Briscoe, Juice Robinson, for example, in the Gold League. They want to have people in the tournament who can lose, which is exactly what happened with Mark Briscoe tonight. They need to have at least a couple of people in this thing that can safely put over the other bigger names in this tournament. And if it isn't going to be Mark Briscoe, then it would be somebody else on that level. It would be a Mark Davis or, someone along those lines. So I get why they have him in the tournament and Juice and the need to have people like that. It just would have been nice to mix it up a little bit more because there are a whole bunch of names that were in it last year. Daniel Garcia and Brody King, who are in the tournament again this year. And there's so many people. I look at both of the groups, the blue and the gold, and I'll show you the gold a little bit later. One name that's missing from this tournament is Konosuke Takeshita. So, we have the TNT champion, Daniel Garcia, is in this thing, but the international champion is not. And so down in flames goes my hope of, possibly having Okada and Takeshita meeting in the tournament. That's why I'm going with Ospreay and Fletcher, because Takeshita's not in the damn thing. So that's disappointing and kind of surprising. But also, I look at Full Gear on Saturday, and they had a four-way match on the pre-show. And Buddy Matthews won that match. It was Buddy Matthews. I want to say it was Dante Martin. It was the Beast Mortos. And I forgot who the other person was now. Their name just popped out of my head. But it was a good match, and Buddy went over in the match. And actually, he was very over in New Jersey for whatever reason on Saturday night. Yet Brody King is in this. And I got nothing against Brody King, right? And he was great tonight. He's going to have a great match with Claudio next week. I'm looking forward to that. But if you're only going to have one member of the House of Black in this tournament, would it not make more sense, especially because Brody was already in it last year, would it not make more sense to have Buddy Matthews in that spot? Brody King did not win a four-way match on Saturday. Buddy Matthews did. Buddy Matthews 4 days ago won a match at Full Gear, beat 3 other people. Why is he not in this tournament? And Brody King is. It's just stuff like that doesn't seem to make a lot of sense to me. I kind of wish he got that spot. But otherwise, you look at some of the names in there, and again, you can't complain about some of the names. We're going to get some great matches in this tournament. But it did leave me with a few questions like that. So in the match here, Briscoe went up top. Benjamin sprung to his feet, scaled the ropes, and hit a superplex. That took us into our first commercial break. Up top again, Briscoe successfully hit the froggy bow, but he clutched his own ribs after landing. Benjamin rolled outside. Briscoe hit an elbow drop from the apron. Back inside, Briscoe wanted another one, but Benjamin got the knees up on the way down, hit a series of German suplexes, and then avoided the J-Driller. Hit a step-up corner knee strike and a thrust kick. Benjamin hit one more kick, flush, before hitting the T-bone suplex and getting the win. So Shelton Benjamin, first on the board here in the Continental Classic, picks up 3 points. And as has been the case with his other matches on TV so far in his brief run, he hasn't even been a full 2 months yet. I don't think so. But in the last, let's say 6 weeks, 7 weeks, whatever it's been, he's looked great. And so this match was no different. He looked great here too. Very impressive. A good match to kick off the tournament. I don't expect Mark Briscoe to rack up many more points, if any more points. If any points, I should say. He had 3 last year. 3 might be the best he could hope for this year. I'm not expecting much different. And same with Juice Robinson in the Gold League. Tony Schiavone, row Roman Reigns gently down the stream. Wait just a second here. Row Roman Reigns gently down the stream. We got Bobby's World. Rowing Roman Reigns. Right on down that stream. Hey, Bobby, thank you. What I was going to say is Tony Schiavone was out on stage to introduce to us the TBS champion, Mercedes Moné, successfully defending her title on Saturday against Chris Statlander without the assistance of Camille. or as I call her, Camille the Klutz. Specifically told Camille on the pre-show, "You're useless. You stay in the back tonight." And what happened? Mercedes went out there for her match, and she won. Without any assistance from Camille, thus proving that she doesn't need Camille. Camille truly is useless to her. She proved herself right. But now they come out together, and Camille is... Poor Camille. I mean, she just looks so beaten down here, walking out. And Tony says the match between Mercedes and Chris Statlander was the longest women's match in AEW history, which I had not realized. And also some are calling it the greatest women's match in AEW history. It was definitely the greatest AEW match of Mercedes' career. I would go so far as to say it probably was the best AEW match of Chris Statlander's career. Certainly top 3. Was it the best women's match in AEW history? Probably not. I feel like probably not. But it's up there. It's definitely up there. They had a quality match on Saturday. No doubt about that. So Mercedes said that Statlander gave her one of the hardest fights of her entire career. Proved that she is one of the very best in the ring. But she is the greatest TBS champion of all time. And at Full Gear, she showed the world how a real woman gets the job done right. So that was a little dig at Camille, who hasn't been doing a very good job of doing her job over the last few weeks. So Mercedes was about to fire her. She was about to fire Camille here on this show. Camille knew it, and she cut her off and told her to shut up. And the people cheered. And she asked her, "Are you stupid or are you just dumb?" Which is exactly what Mercedes said to her several weeks ago when Camille was showing off her poor driving skills. So she threw it right back in Mercedes' face. And she said, "You can't fire me because I quit." Only she was saying that to Tony Khan. She was saying that to Mercedes. And the fans cheered, and Camille left, and Mercedes threw a fit, and the fans chanted, "You deserve it," at her. I told you that when this moment finally came, the people are going to pop. I didn't know how they were going to do it. I didn't know if Camille was going to get physical and punch her, shove her down, hit a finishing move of some kind, or just walk off the way she did here. But when the day came that she finally had enough, and she quit, and she walked away from this woman, everybody would cheer, and it would be a nice moment. But what has happened over the last several weeks has done so much damage to Camille that I'm not sure she can recover fully from it. I'm not saying that people won't get behind her a little bit, they won't cheer for her and take to her as a babyface. I really feel like when she came in, as compared to the way she is now, and it's only been 4 months, people now have seen Camille in a different light, not in a good way. She just doesn't have that same feeling about her as we saw when she first debuted. I don't know that you can get that back. I don't know that I trust them enough in booking her and doing whatever it is that they're going to do with her to restore that feeling. I think that feeling is gone. I think it's dead. And this pairing, there's no really other way to look at it, but you look at this pairing, and this pairing can be described as an epic fail. It's exactly what it was. It will go down as an epic fail. 4 months. 4 months. It took 4 months for Tony Khan to mess this entire thing up. The way that they rushed through this story is mind-boggling to me. Truly is. It truly is a head scratcher. And I really feel, that right there. I talked about the reaction in Chicago tonight as compared to past shows they've had in Chicago and how it wasn't as enthusiastic. At moments, at times it is, but just not the same level of enthusiasm that you would normally get in that city when they've run shows there before. And that's just one example of the problem that I think AEW has, in that people just aren't as invested as they used to be in some of these stories and some of these individuals. Like you can cherry pick people who are over right now. Will Ospreay and certain people, MJF, even some of the heels, like fans react to them in a major way. They're over, quote unquote. But it's just that level of commitment that people have, I feel like, to some of these characters and these stories, the level of investment, it just isn't there. It's not there in the way that you would see it on some other shows. And big reason for that is stuff like this, where you can cultivate a story over a period of time, right? You take your time with something. I'm not saying it has to go for a year or years, but you take your time with something and you build it up in a way that builds these characters and builds these relationships between the characters up enough that when the day finally comes that you do something like what we had tonight, where they split and they want you to side with Camille. They want you to feel sympathy for her and they want you to root for her because she finally stood up for herself. You mean to tell me you don't think this story would have been more meaningful if this would have been done 6 months from now? Spring or summer of 2025? Maybe at the year mark or even a few months shy of the year mark of them being together. They've been together for 4 months. And the last month of it has been Mercedes basically just trashing this woman. They haven't even been on the same page. So for all intents and purposes, we're talking about 3 months. How do you fuck this up? What's the rush? Why are you rushing through this? You need to take the time to tell that story. Otherwise, people aren't going to care. That's why this didn't really feel like a big deal. People are happy, okay, finally Camille's away from her, but who cares? So what? This would have meant so much more if they would have taken their time with this and they just, pissed it away and, okay, now we have the breakup. What does it mean? Okay, now we're going to get a match, I guess. What does it mean? Not much, unfortunately, not much. And you don't need to look at WWE and the Bloodline and stuff like that. All you need to do, if you're an AEW fan, if you're an AEW sicko, all you need to do is look within. Look at Toni Storm and Mariah May. Look at the time that they invested in that story. It was about 9 months, right? It wasn't even a full year. I want to say it was about 9 months from start to finish. They did a great job with that. They had a segment on television, at least one, every single week. Whether it was in the ring, whether it was in the back, whether it was Toni Storm with another black and white silent film. They did that shit for 9 months. And then when they shot the angle where Mariah May turned her back and betrayed Toni Storm and beat the shit out of her at the end of Dynamite, my God, what a great segment that was. That will go down as maybe the greatest Dynamite segment all year when this year is over. And we're getting pretty close to the end of the year. If that isn't number one, it's top 3 for sure. And you know why that works so well? Do you think that segment would have worked as well if Mariah May would have done that to Toni Storm after 3 fucking months? No. But they took their time with it and they built it. It's called character development. And so the people reacted to it in the way that they did because they were invested in it. It was the fans rewarding you for telling a great story. So I know it can be done. I know these people know how to tell a good story, but why they didn't do it here, I don't know. And it's a shame. I wish her well, Camille. I wish her well, but they really failed these two with the way they handled this pairing. And it's a waste. But if this is what they were going to do with Camille, you know what? Better off that they killed it instead of just dragging it out. The way I would compare it, it's like, you're kind of driving down the road and you come across a wounded animal who's been hit by a car and it's awful. And there's nothing you can do. But the animal is just, it's alive, but it's suffering. You want to put the animal out of its misery. AEW put this angle here out of its misery tonight because there really was no other way to handle this. There was nothing else that you could do here. The damage was already done. Better to put it out of its misery and move on. Speaking of putting things out of their misery, the learning tree. We had Chris Jericho defending his Ring of Honor World Championship tonight against Tomohiro Ishii. Big Bill decided to join on commentary tonight. And Big Bill presented Tony Schiavone with a sapling tree that he said hopes grows over time to become a learning tree. And I thought to myself, God help us all. That's the last thing we need. It's like a horror movie villain who finally gets killed off in the movie. And you think it's over, right? But they spread their seed. And then there's that one scene in the movie where the baby is born. And you realize, oh no, it lives on. Once the learning tree here has run its course, the last thing we need is another learning tree. So when this is finally over, let it die and let's be done with this, please. We don't need another learning tree. We don't need that either. George Seckman with Brie mode. Something else we need a little bit less of. But I'm glad we have it here from George. Thank you for the 25, George. Came in a little late after eating at a Thanksgiving buffet, he said. I'll be having my own Thanksgiving buffet tomorrow at some family's house. We're gonna have some noodle pudding. I'm gonna be eating good tomorrow. I'm looking forward to it. And I'll put in some extra work at the gym to work it all off. You know, this is the time of year, by the way, where people eat like pigs, and then I have to go to the gym, and all the machines are taken up by all the people who decide, oh, you know what, it's a good time to go to the gym. And then they go, and it's a couple weeks, and then you don't see these people anymore. But for like 2 weeks, I'm going to have to fight over machines. Because these people decided, oh, you know what, maybe I should join a gym. New year, new me. No. New year, same you. After 2 weeks, it's going to be right back to the way things are. It always works out that way. The match begins. Jericho and Ishii. And it's very similar to the first match that they had, where it's just nothing but chops. Now, you may not realize this, but it was the post-Full Gear episode of Dynamite 2 years ago, which also happened to fall on Thanksgiving Eve, which, oh, by the way, also happened to take place at the Wintrust Arena in Chicago, which is the same exact building they were in tonight, I'm sure with many more people than they had tonight. But literally, like, the circumstances were all the same. First Dynamite after Full Gear. Wintrust Arena in Chicago. Thanksgiving Eve. Chris Jericho, Ring of Honor World Champion, defending his title against Ishii. So here we are now, a carbon copy 2 years later. And the big difference being that the crowd was certainly more enthusiastic 2 years ago, and again, probably bigger, than it was tonight. So when these two got in a chop fest a couple of years ago, the people were going crazy for it. Here, not so much. I'm not saying they were silent. They were making some noise, but it wasn't anything like, you know, what they had 2 years. It's like a cheap copy of what they did 2 years ago, basically. And they did the same chop battle, and, you know, after a while, it's just like they kept doing it and doing it and doing it. And it's like, can we get on with this, please? I don't find this entertaining at all. Both men fought to the apron. Jericho spiked Ishii with a DDT on the apron. You know, you would think for a guy with no neck, that would have no effect on him, but he fell to the ground. He was selling his neck. Back inside, instead of a chop battle, now we get a slap fight. And all that did was wake up Ishii. Jericho was bleeding from the mouth. Even after a commercial break, they come back. These two are still slapping each other. I wrote, is this supposed to be entertaining? Jericho hit a superplex, which Ishii no-sold. He popped right back up. The slaps picked up again until finally Jericho hit a release German suplex. Jericho wanted a Judas effect. Ishii, though, threw a lariat at the same time. Both men collapsed. Jericho hit a fireman's carry slam into the lion salt, only for 2. So finally, the Judas effect connects, then a code breaker, but Ishii kicks out at 1. So Ishii managed a code breaker and a wild lariat for a 2 count of his own. Jericho hit 2 more Judas effects and finally pinned him to retain the title. Now, when Jericho pinned Ishii here, you'll notice his shoulders were also down on the mat because he kind of fell backwards on top of him. It was kind of like the Jericho, or not Jericho, the Michaels Triple H finish from their World Heavyweight title match back in 2003. Falls backwards, both shoulders down. Aubrey Edwards is right there. I mean, she's got to be blind as a bat, legally blind if she can't see that his shoulders were down. I mean, it was right in front of her. But she counted the pin and awarded the match to Chris Jericho anyway. And maybe they're going to use that as the impetus to put these two back in the ring for a rematch. I have no idea why we need to see a rematch. Maybe not. Maybe it's going to be completely ignored. Maybe Aubrey Edwards really did not see that Jericho's shoulders were also on the mat. I don't know. But nobody is asking for a rematch here. This was already a rematch. We don't need a rematch of the rematch of the rematch. That's like making a copy of a copy of a copy. Each copy that you make is going to be worse than the one that came before it. I still stick with what I said a few weeks ago. I think that this is setting up a Samoa Joe return. I think Samoa Joe's going to come back. I think it's going to be him defending Ring of Honor, effectively. The honor of Ring of Honor, because he was Mr. ROH for many years. And he'll be the one to go into the Hammerstein Ballroom at Final Battle and beat Jericho to win the Ring of Honor World title. I mean, to me, anyway, that sounds more interesting than just running Mark Briscoe back just to win the belt back again. So I'm going to stick with Joe for my prediction for Final Battle. And look, you know what? Fair play to these two. They went in there. Again, Jericho was bleeding from the mouth. I think Ishii was bleeding from the mouth. They beat the crap out of each other. I really wish, I'm pulling for Tony Khan to get a television deal for Ring of Honor. Because the sooner he gets a TV deal for Ring of Honor, we can do away with these Ring of Honor championship matches on AEW television. If I wanted to see Ring of Honor titles defended, I would watch Ring of Honor. Once they get their television show, if they get one, I should say if, we shouldn't need to deal with this anymore. So, Tony, I'm pulling for you. Renee was backstage with Swerve Strickland and Prince Nana, and she wanted to know, how are you guys going to rebuild after Swerve's loss to Bobby Lashley at Full Gear? By the way, they cut out the...
Off! It's a direction you can fuck!
Well, that was very mean. That was very mean, Matt. Thank you for the $22 super chat.
I am the last.
Shut the fuck up. Fuck that tree. Knew I wasn't going to get away with that one. They cut the background audio out for this segment, so we couldn't hear the crowd. I don't know why they did that, but you couldn't hear the crowd here for this segment. So Swerve said, look, rebuilding is something that I do very well. He's never been hit by anybody as hard as Lashley. So as he's talking, at that moment, Max Caster comes walking by behind him, and he's smiling, he's laughing. And Swerve calls him out and says, what's so funny? Caster said that Swerve was funny. Pointed out that the Prudential Center, which is where Full Gear took place on Saturday, is where Swerve not only lost to Lashley, but the Prudential Center is the same building where Caster pinned Swerve when the Acclaim won the AEW tag team titles from him and Keith Lee. Remember him? Shout out to Keith Lee wherever he is. I hope his health is well. I hope he's doing okay, but until just now, honestly, I had completely forgotten about him. But I hope he's doing okay. Caster said, hey, let's do some comedy and write some bars because everybody loves the best wrestler alive. And then he said, Swerve, you used to be like a house of fire. He stopped. He said, like a house of fire. He says, house fire. That's a bar. So, you know, you're mocking Swerve's childhood home being burned down. This is obviously only one response, which is that Swerve is going to grab him and throw him up against the wall, which is exactly what he did. Then he tossed him around a little bit. He punted him in the head when he was on all fours. And Prince Nana finally was able to pull Swerve away. I don't know if they're going to split up the Acclaim. Anthony Bowens was not here. I feel like Anthony Bowens has more singles potential than Max Caster does. It might not benefit them to break them up, but the way I look at it, the Acclaim right now is very flat. There's just, you know, not a whole lot going on there. I feel like the whole daddy ass thing, it's all played out at this point. So maybe they're better off taking the singles route, at least as far as Bowens is concerned. I don't know if the idea is that Caster is going to go heel. Maybe Caster is going to end up linking up with the Hurt Syndicate. Maybe the Acclaimed is going to go heel and join the Hurt Syndicate. And they're going to be recruited into the group. I don't know exactly where it's going to go, but I do know one thing, though. There is no love lost between Max Caster and Shelton Benjamin. Because if you remember, before Benjamin signed with AEW, and he talked about this in the interview he did many months ago with Chris Van Vliet, that Caster had made some comments online about, we don't want him. I think people were asking about the possibility of Shelton coming in. And he said something to the effect of, we don't want him. And people weren't sure if he was just kind of working, but it didn't seem like he was. His attitude being that if we bring in a guy like him, he's taking a spot that could belong to me, and I don't want that. I don't want him to take my spot, so we don't want him. So when Chris asked Shelton about this in the interview they did, Shelton was like, look, I don't know who this guy is. I've never met him before, but you could tell like he was kind of bothered by that comment. Like, what kind of a comment is that to make? So I'm not so sure that there's love between those two, and we've seen before in AEW when people don't get along. Sometimes it results in bad things that happen behind the scenes. The last thing that AEW needs more of is behind the scenes drama. So I don't know, maybe it's better off to keep those two separate. But we were 55 minutes into this show before Excalibur finally gave us an update on Orange Cassidy, one half of the main event from Full Gear on Saturday, the man who tried to take the AEW World Championship. We hadn't heard a single word about him until almost an hour into the show here. And he said that he's still dealing with injuries sustained as a result of the chemicals that were poured down his throat by Wheeler Yuta. Because if you remember, when the match was over, Jon Moxley was holding Orange Cassidy. Wheeler Yuta, who interfered in the finish, got into the ring, and he had a bottle of what looked like, I don't know what it was, antifreeze or whatever the fuck it was, some kind of cleaning chemicals. He was pouring it down his throat. He was pouring it over his head. So that was the update on Orange Cassidy. He's not medically cleared, and he's still nursing his injuries as a result of what we saw at Full Gear. Good to know. I don't know why it took an hour to even acknowledge this, but there's the update. Now, Tony Schiavone was in the ring to bring Hangman Adam Page on down for a promo. And Hangman gets in the ring, and Tony brings up the fact that Hangman lost to Jay White on Saturday at Full Gear. And then he put his hands after the match was over on Christopher Daniels, which is a no-no because he's an AEW official. Then he comes back out after the main event, and he's trying to help Christian cash in his world championship opportunity on Moxley to become the AEW world champion. So basically, he wanted to know what's going on here. What is this all about? Tony, all you had to do was listen to the sound off. If you listened to the podcast, I would have told you. You would have heard it from me. I laid it all out. Exactly what happened and why it made sense, even for all the people who claimed it didn't. None of this makes any sense. It made perfect sense. I laid it all out. Now, if Tony were listening to the podcast, he would know this. He wouldn't have to ask the question. I did a better job of explaining it than AEW did. So Hangman just snatched the microphone out of his hand. And he threatened Christopher Daniels. He said, the next time, you're not going to get back up. And he said at Full Gear, he made a deal. And he kept up his end of the deal. Had Christian kept up his end, then Hangman would be back home for lunch tomorrow eating a bowl of stuffing with the world championship around his waist. But he failed. I love that image, by the way, of Hangman sitting there by himself with that just whacked out look on his face at the kitchen table with a bowl of stuffing with the title wrapped around his waist. I feel like he would just wear that thing everywhere. He's so obsessed with being the champion. He wears it. He goes to the grocery store. You know, he wears it out when he goes for a run, his morning run around the neighborhood, sleeps with it, showers with it, shits with it, all of it. Just doesn't let it out of his sight. So he said he's going to do what he should have done in the first place. His intention is and always has been to be the AEW World Champion. It should have never been Swerve Strickland. It should have never been Bryan Danielson. It should have never been Jon Moxley. It shouldn't be Christian's because that title has always been his. So he was interrupted by Switchblade Jay White. Does he bang with it too? Probably, yeah, actually. Although it might get in the way. So I don't know. Maybe he kind of, turns it around. I don't know. I haven't asked the guy. Maybe you could send him a DM on Blue Sky. See if he'll answer you back. But he was interrupted by Switchblade Jay White, who reminded Hangman that he beat him in both of their recent matches. So if anybody is going to get a shot at the world title, it is going to be Switchblade. But if Hangman would like another taste of Jay White, he would happily do it here tonight in Chicago. Pac shows up at ringside, and he yanks Jay White down from the apron. He attacks him. Meanwhile, in the ring, Wheeler Yuta sneaks up from behind Hangman Page, and he clips Hangman's knee. So now Pac and Yuta are in the ring. They're double-teaming Hangman until Jay White recovers. He ends up dumping Yuta out of the ring. He drops Pac on his head, but then Hangman wipes out Jay White with a lariat. But then Marina Shafir shows up, and she has the briefcase, and she cracks it over Hangman's skull. She was about to do the same thing to Switchblade, but he avoided it. He grabbed her, was threatening to give her a Blade Runner, which the people popped for. They wanted to see him beat this woman up. But before he could follow through, Jon Moxley snuck up from behind. He trapped Jay White in a rear naked choke. That allowed Shafir to give him a good kick to the ribs. Marina Shafir then gives Switchblade a judo throw, or I'm sorry, it was Jay White. Thought it was Hangman for a second. Gives him a judo throw, and then locks him in a choke and puts him out. So Marina Shafir chokes out Jay White, whose eyes were still open. Clearly, you could see his eyes were open, but he was out. Right, the lights are on, but nobody's home. Then they all ganged up on him. They started putting the boots to him. It ended with Pac smashing him in the head with the briefcase. They keep telling us that they think the AEW World Championship is in this briefcase. It's like the world's smallest briefcase, and you know how big that AEW World title is. Like, it's comical. It's just comical that they continue to try to convince us that the championship is in this briefcase. I mean, maybe if it's one of the kids' toy belts, then maybe. But you ain't fitting the AEW World Championship in that briefcase. I'm sorry. So it looks like we might end up getting Hangman and Jay White as reluctant tag team partners. I mean, I can see that being a match at Winter is Coming. We're getting the Winter is Coming episode of Dynamite in 2 weeks. We may get Can They Coexist with Hangman and Jay White taking on two members of the Death Riders. So either Claudio and Pac, maybe Claudio and Wheeler Yuta. I could definitely see that being a match. They did announce Hangman one-on-one with Wheeler Yuta. That is official for Collision, which is going to be airing at 4 o'clock Eastern time on Saturday. I like that we have two of the bigger names in the company now involved in this program here, going after Moxley's crew. And that's two more challengers for Moxley's title above and beyond Darby Allin, who we know will be challenging at some point. He might even win. He might even beat, Jon Moxley when the time comes. But again, that's one of the things I liked about the finish of the pay-per-view is that they set up all of these challengers in one fell swoop. They kind of mapped it out for you. Like you could see where this is going now over these next few months for the World Championship. So I like that. So the Death Riders, they left through the crowd. One member who was not out there for this beatdown segment here was Claudio Castagnoli, but as they were leaving through the crowd, he was entering through the crowd because he was in the next match. He was coming out for his match, another one in the Continental Classic, taking on Ricochet, and I showed you earlier the Blue League, and now what I'll do is I will show you the Gold League. So there it is. This is the Gold League of the Continental Classic. Darby Allin, Claudio, Will Ospreay, Ricochet, Brody King, and Juice Robinson. So you got Darby, you got Claudio, Ospreay, I mean, pretty much all of them, honestly, except Juice. I look at some of the names in here, and you got some pretty big names. You got some heavy hitters in here. I mean, obviously, you look at this, we're guaranteed to get another match now between Will Ospreay and Ricochet. So that's great. We're going to get Darby Allin against Will Ospreay. We're going to get Darby Allin against Ricochet, Claudio, and Brody King next week. So we're going to get some pretty badass matches out of this group here, both groups. But this is one of the things that I like about doing this tournament. You know, we get some matches that we haven't seen before, or we get the occasional match that we have, but you know, maybe you want to see it again. So good stuff. But we had Claudio and Ricochet in the ring, and you would think, okay, you got two great wrestlers in the ring, and AEW is where the best wrestle. So the fans in Chicago, man, they're going to be all pumped up. And the only thing the fans here in Chicago were interested in chanting was the fact that both of these men were bald. So we got chants of bald forever, which, yeah, it kind of describes the life of Hulk Hogan, really. I feel like he was born, well, I mean, most of us were born bald. I don't know anybody who came out of the womb with a full head of hair, but I suppose it's possible. But Hogan, I feel like from his adolescence on through his adulthood, has pretty much been bald his entire life. So Ricochet has talked about how he's only bald by choice. People ask him, well, you know, they send him tweets all the time. Why you bald? Why you bald? Like the letter Y. Why you bald? Right? He gets it all the time. And he goes, brother, it's a choice. He goes, I look better, which honestly is true. If you've seen pictures of Ricochet from when he was younger and he had hair, he looks much better bald. And Claudio also, by the way. Claudio had hair in the old days of Ring of Honor. I remember when Claudio had hair, and Claudio looks a lot better now than he did then. So, I don't know. Maybe what do you think? Maybe we'll do a head shaving here on the stream one of these days. What do you think? Bald solo. What do you think? Maybe we'll all go bald. I'll even invite FTR Bald to come on with me and join me. It'll be one big bald bash live on YouTube. That's what they were chanting for here. They were chanting, this is bald. That's what they were chanting. This is bald. Bald forever. Those were the chants that were going out through the arena. Oh, man. Why you bald? After a break, Ricochet hit a dive through the ropes. He went up top, back inside. He was looking for a dive. Claudio caught him, though, into a backbreaker. Claudio wanted a pop-up uppercut. Ricochet, though, stood on his chest briefly and backflipped out into a head scissors and then another dive from the top to the floor. Inside, Ricochet tried to springboard off the second rope. Claudio, though, hit an uppercut out of midair for a 2 count. The sharpshooter was applied, transitioned into the crossface by Claudio. He wanted a Ricola bomb, but Ricochet rolled through. Claudio tossed Ricochet out to the floor and into the barricade. And he would have been fine with taking the count-out win here. But Ricochet broke the count. Claudio then wipes him out with a lariat, and he pins him. That's it. 1, 2, 3, just like that. So Ricochet only just lost his first singles match in AEW to Takeshita on Saturday, and now within less than a week, he's now lost his second singles match, although this was the right call. Claudio is part of the Death Riders. They're really building him up as a beast. You saw what happened in his match, was it last week, I guess, with Darby, where he just fucking annihilated Darby. They're obviously building him up as this unstoppable force, but he's part of the top heel faction in the company right now. And so they want to make them look as strong as possible. I mean, unless you're Will or Yuta, then who the fuck cares? I mean, he lost last week to Orange Cassidy. But you want to make them look as strong as humanly possible. So I agree with the outcome here, and that wasn't really so much of a surprise to me. But I do think if, Ricochet loses a couple more matches like this in the tournament, for his sake, maybe they're building some kind of comeback story for him. I mean, if anything, if there's a comeback story here, it's probably going to be Darby and not Ricochet. And actually, if Ricochet is going to wrestle Will Ospreay, I kind of feel like that would be a match Ricochet should win. Ultimately, Ospreay wins enough that he makes it to the finals. But if you're going to do Ricochet and Ospreay part 2, which they are going to do, I feel like that's a match Ricochet would benefit more from winning than Ospreay would. That's a win that Ricochet, by the time we get there at this rate, is going to need a lot more than Will. Claudio, though, he may be the one who goes on a tear in this tournament. The finish here fell a little flat because he hit a lariat out of nowhere, and I don't think people were expecting that to be the finish, but it's the same way he beat Darby last week. So they're obviously trying to establish that as his finish now, and I just feel like it's going to take a little while for people to get used to it, because not everybody was probably expecting that to be the end. Renee was backstage with Kyle Fletcher and Don Callis. Asked about Fletcher's biggest win of his career against Will Ospreay, and Callis said that they destroyed Ospreay because that's what people do to get ahead in this business. They proved what Callis has said all along, that Kyle is better than Will Ospreay, and they're just getting started. Fletcher said that they made it certain that he is better than Ospreay in every single way.
It's the amazing Gunther. Jerry Lawler loves Gunther the Magnificent. All hail Gunther.
Hey, it's RD Beats coming in with a $50 bomb. Oh, it's our boy Dylan. Dylan says our founder of AAPW, George De La Isla, just passed away. Well, I'm sorry to hear that. Says that we will be having a memorial show in his honor on December 7th. AAPW still has not found a new home yet. Hopefully we will by 2025. Feel the beat. For real, for real. Well, I'm sorry to hear about the founder. That sounds kind of sudden. But Dylan, thank you for the $50, man. That's awesome. I appreciate the love. And I hope you're doing well. Hopefully everything is going well with your training as well. But again, you know, Fletcher here saying that he's better than Will Ospreay in every single way. I told you what they should do. Now we wait and see if they do it. Do they have the guts to do it? That's the question. Adam Cole came to the ring. A little less spray tan this week. Good. Good. That's good. We're heading in the right direction now. Came out with the Kingdom. No Roderick Strong, obviously, because he was left with possibly a broken arm after his match with MJF on Saturday. But Taven and Bennett were in the ring with him. And Cole was not in a good mood. He was sick and tired of playing games with MJF, who keeps ducking him because he said he's a little bitch. That's what he called him. After what MJF did to Roddy, he swears on his mother's life that he's going to beat Max within an inch of his life when he gets his hands on him. The conglomeration theme plays, and out comes Kyle O'Reilly. And he storms to the ring, and I'm already bored by this. I've made it very clear I don't care about any of this, but yet they're telling this story. This is the story they're telling. So Kyle O'Reilly comes down to the ring, says, with all due respect, Adam fought Max once before, and it didn't work out. So let me fight MJF. O'Reilly was about to call MJF out, but Cole cut him off. And he said, you know what, Kyle? What you said to me last week, it stuck with me. That being that he can't let his friends fight his battles for him. He has to be the one to fight MJF. And O'Reilly said, dude, I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing this for Roddy. So all of a sudden, MJF is shown on the big screen, and he's playing a piano. It looks like he's at home. And I'm just like, we're right back to the pre-tape promos again. I thought we were done with this. I thought he was back. But he's still sending in pre-tape promos. So he's playing the piano somewhere. He's like the piano man. And he goes, oh, I just heard what you guys were saying. And he declined the challenge from both of them. He said right now he's more focused on the Dynamite Dozen Battle Royal next week. So at least we know he'll be on the show next week. At least we know that. We have that commitment. He said that he'll play them out. He starts playing his theme song. They cut away from him. Cole says, well, in that case, I'm going to be the first after MJF, obviously, to enter the Battle Royal next week. Then Kyle O'Reilly pops up. He goes, well, then I'm going to be the second one to enter the Battle Royal next week. And the two of them argue off mic for a little bit until Kyle leaves the ring. Obviously, this is all part of the overall story with Adam Cole and MJF, and that's the match that, if anybody wants to see anything from this feud, that's the match people want to see. But again, the Cole and the Kyle stuff, or Cole, Kyle, and Roddy, again, I know these three guys have been interconnected in various ways for many years across multiple promotions, but it's just so played out. It's just so played out, and I just can't bring myself to care. So the sooner we get MJF back consistently on TV and we can really start rocking and rolling with the build to this match, I assume for World's End, the better off we're all going to be. Now, Excalibur starts running down the bracket for the International Women's Cup 4-Way, which is taking place at Wrestle Dynasty, as the upcoming match will be one of the semifinals for AEW, and the other semifinal that we're going to be getting is Willow Nightingale against Serena Deeb. That's going to be taking place on Collision on December 7th. The other match with Jamie Hayter and Queen Aminata was the one that we got here on this show tonight. So yeah, there's another tournament going on. We have the Continental Classic has kicked off. We had 3 tournament matches alone tonight, but we have another tournament now. And then on Monday Night Raw, we're probably going to get another tournament to crown a new Women's Intercontinental Champion. That's going to kick off on Monday next week. We're in the middle of a tournament on SmackDown right now for the Women's United States Championship. So it is tournament mania going on, right? I can't keep track of all these tournaments that are going on. It's too much. Too many tournaments. The finals are going to take place on the Winter is Coming episode of Collision on December 14th, which happens to be the same night as Saturday night's main event. I think they're taping Collision that week on Thursday, and it's airing on Saturday. And the winner will then advance to Wrestle Dynasty at the Tokyo Dome, which is the 2-night Tokyo Dome event. Wrestle Kingdom is on January 4th. Wrestle Dynasty is on January 5th. We already know the Young Bucks are going to be on that show. We know that Kenny Omega is having his return match against Gabe Kidd. We know Ricochet is going to be challenging Zack Sabre Jr., possibly for the IWGP World Heavyweight Championship, should he retain his title over Shota Umino on night 1. And so now we have another match that's going to be lined up for Wrestle Dynasty soon. Ring of Honor is going to have a match of their own, because the whole point of Wrestle Dynasty, if you don't know, it's a collaboration across multiple promotions. It's basically New Japan's version of Forbidden Door. You'll have New Japan talent, AEW talent, Ring of Honor talent, CMLL talent, and Stardom talent. So in this women's international 4-way they're building to, you're going to have one representative from AEW, one from Ring of Honor, one from CMLL, and one from Stardom. That's the whole point. And my understanding, I think this is what they said, is that the winner will be able to challenge for whatever championship they choose from whichever promotion. I think that's the prize kind of at the end of the rainbow here. I think that's what they're fighting for. The Ring of Honor match is going to be Athena against Red Velvet against Billy Starks against Layla Hirsch. I don't know when that's taking place, and I don't know what CMLL is going to have a match of their own. Stardom will have a match of their own. I don't know what they're going to be. But here we had Jamie Hayter one-on-one with Queen Aminata. It was good to get Jamie Hayter in the ring on this show for a match. We don't get to see that very often. And I enjoyed this. Aminata late in the match wanted a slam. Jamie slid out, tried a big boot. Aminata caught it, hit a face buster. So Aminata was up top, and she wanted a double stomp. Rolled through, and Jamie Hayter connected on a hate breaker. As she went for the Haterade, though, Aminata got a roll-up for 2. Both women scrambled around for pin attempts until Jamie sank in the choke, or a choke, which Aminata was able to roll out of. Hayter, though, got up first, hit a big boot, and then Haterade wiped out Queen Aminata for the win. So Jamie Hayter is going to move on to the finals of this AEW portion of things. But when the match was over, all of a sudden the lights went out, and then a spotlight appeared. on stage. And it was just the spotlight. We didn't see anybody. So evidently God has jumped ship. We saw God against Shawn Michaels, right? Or what? No, it was Shawn Michaels and God, right? Against Vince McMahon and Shane McMahon. Was that the match of Backlash back in 2006? Remember they had the spotlight and they just had the spotlight going down the aisleway? That was supposed to be God. Apparently God, his contract expired and was not renewed by Nick Khan and the folks at TKO. So he has now jumped ship, and Tony Khan has offered God even more money to come work for AEW. And I don't know if that means that God is going to be allowed to work indie dates now. The way things are going, he may not be. Tony Khan may revoke his indie privileges. I don't know, but maybe that's who it was supposed to be. I didn't see Julia Hart. That's who Jamie Hayter thought it was, but we never saw Julia Hart. I'm only left to assume that it was God making his AEW debut. But that was it. Nobody came out, and then Jamie's music just started playing again, and that was the end of that. I'm going to make a prediction here. The Willow Nightingale match against Serena Deeb. I got Willow beating Serena, possibly with an assist from Britt Baker, who's got a little feud going on right now with Serena. And we get Jamie Hayter against Willow Nightingale, which sounds like a hell of a fucking match. And I got Jamie Hayter winning. Jamie Hayter will win and go on to punch her ticket to the Tokyo Dome. And she'll be a part of that four-way match representing AEW. So saith, so it shall be done. That's what I'd like to see. Renee was backstage sitting with Mina Shirakawa. Wanted to ask Mina about the heartbreak that she experienced after what happened at Full Gear when when Mariah May turned on her the way she did Toni Storm, or tried to anyway. Mina saw it coming, tackled her off the stage. They went through a table down below. And so she wanted to know Mina's thoughts on the situation. And Mina said, look, she knew that this day would come. She said that if Mariah could do this to Toni, she could do it to her as well. And this is unfortunately the real Mariah May, selfish, who feels she has to kill anyone who gets close to her. Said if that's the real Mariah, then it's time to introduce her to the real Mina. Well, Mariah May charges from behind and smashes a bottle over Mina's head and then beats her down with the AEW Women's World title. And she says, I want Mina. And then we're told that it will be Mariah May one-on-one with Mina Shirakawa in 2 weeks at Winter is Coming for the AEW World Women's Championship. Mr. T in the chat says, God versus the Devil MJF would make money. MJF wrestling nobody in the ring, the Invisible Man, he probably would find a way to get it over, if we're being honest. He would probably find a way to make that work. But it's just not the sort. That's the sort of thing you would see at like a random indie show somewhere. That's not the sort of shit that MJF is going to get involved in. But I think he can make it work. The main event of this show saw Darby Allin against Brody King in a Gold League match in the Continental Classic. Darby enters. He's got his ribs heavily bandaged up from the stunt that he pulled at the end of the pay-per-view on Saturday when he T-boned his car into the back of the Death Riders pickup truck, which is such a smart thing to do when you're 4 days away from this round-robin tournament that you're a part of. Nobody said that Darby Allin was very smart. He takes risks. He's got guts. Brains, I'm not so sure about. Guts, he's got. He's got plenty of those. He's lucky they weren't spilled out all over the ground on Saturday when he T-boned that truck. Also, by the way, his knee was wrapped. I should point that out as well. So Brody King proceeded to just beat the living crap out of him. I don't think Darby got a single offensive move off on this guy in the first few minutes of this match before they went into the final commercial break. During the break, I think it was during the break, Brody King, he went for a cannonball up against the barricade. And as soon as he hit this cannonball against the barricade, the audio feed got cut. So he took the audio for the announcers specifically. They come back from commercial break, and we had audio, but it was the arena audio, so we could hear the crowd like a house show match, but we could not hear the announcers. And this went on, I would say, for close to 90 seconds before they were able to restore the audio. And when I say this, I'm not lying to you, and I'm not, because I wouldn't lie to you. I would never lie to you. And I would never tell you something that I did not honestly feel. And I'm not even saying this to try to be funny. I greatly enjoyed those 90 seconds of no commentary. And when the commentary was restored and I heard Excalibur and Tony and everything, I was disappointed. I could have easily watched the rest of this match with no commentary, and it would have actually improved the match. I was enjoying myself. And I was sorry when they restored the commentary for this. But the commentary did come back. So it was Darby who wanted a coffin drop. His legs, though, got swept out. He ended up in a tree of woe. Brody hit his corner cannonball on him. Brody was looking for a superplex. Darby, though, bit the hands, and he bit him on the head. And then he connected on an avalanche code red. Got a near fall out of that. Brody rolled outside. He immediately got met by a wild suicide dive by Darby Allin, and then a top rope coffin drop. Darby connected on another one on Brody King, who was down, and then he went for a one back inside the ring, but King caught him in a rear naked choke on the way down. And Darby rolled through, got a 2 count. King, though, was right back to the choke, and after a while, he released the hold, and then he destroyed Darby with a gonzo bomb, and he pinned him to win the match. After the match was over, King left the ring. Claudio Castagnoli showed up, and he had a chair, and Brody King returned. And we got a stare down because Claudio was standing on the steps. He never got into the ring. He stayed there on the steps. Brody was in the ring staring him down. That's when Excalibur filled us in on the fact that next week we're going to get Brody King against Claudio in the Continental Classic. And that is how they went off the air. So basically the story here is that Darby did so much damage to himself that he put himself at a disadvantage and he paid for it. He wasn't able to pick up the win here, and he's already down in this tournament. And really, it's nobody's fault but his own. So I guess that's why I said before, maybe not Ricochet, but Darby I could see being the one who's going to have to be the comeback kid, here in this tournament. And I'm not even expecting him to go to the finals, let alone win the entire thing. But if he's going to get back in this, he's probably going to lose another couple of matches. And then he can start racking up some points and trying to make a comeback here. And the match next week between Brody and Claudio, I think, is going to be great. I'm looking forward to that. This show was carried by the Continental Classic matches. It's exactly the way it was last year. They let the wrestling speak for itself, and then they can weave certain stories into it, like the one I mentioned with Darby. Tonight, it was about establishing Shelton and the Hurt Syndicate as a dominant force, which they did. Same with Claudio and the Death Riders. And more than putting over Brody King, again, it was about Darby doing himself in with the stupid stunt from Saturday. And his obsession with Jon Moxley and getting back at Jon Moxley, ultimately leading to his downfall. The Hangman Jay White stuff, I enjoyed that, and I just like the fact that they're in the world title mix now, as they should be. Jay White is somebody who should be in the mix there, and Hangman absolutely should be in the mix there, and so should Swerve. But Swerve right now is going to be continuing his feud with the Hurt Syndicate. Fully expect a rematch at World's End with him and Bobby Lashley, especially the way things ended on Saturday, where he put Prince Nana in the Hurt Lock. And Prince Nana looked fine tonight. I was a little surprised by that, but clearly they're going to build to a second match between those two. So Swerve, for the time being, is not in the world title picture, but he's another one who should be reintroduced back into that world title picture in early 2025. Now, Collision. Little programming alert for you. AEW Collision is airing at an earlier time on Saturday. So yeah, get your woo-wings ready. Collision on Saturday airs at a special start time of 4 p.m. Eastern Time. And before you start crowing about Survivor Series, and they're moving it because of Survivor Series, because Survivor Series has an early start time. Just for those of you who are unaware of that, 6 p.m. Eastern. So plan accordingly for Saturday. It's airing earlier than usual. But that's not why. The AEW shows are airing early. It's actually Collision for 2 hours and then an hour of Rampage on Saturday, immediately after Collision. It's a 3-hour block. And the reason is Rampage is bumped on Friday night. There's a NHL doubleheader. And then on Saturday, TNT has college basketball. Apparently there's some kind of holiday tournament, some kind of doubleheader. I think it's 7 o'clock. So it's sports, basically. There's sports that are going to be preempting them, so that's why it's airing early. So just be aware of that. But on Collision, Okada is wrestling on Collision. He's going to be taking on the TNT champion Daniel Garcia in the Continental Classic. So we're getting champion against champion at 4 o'clock in the afternoon on Collision on Saturday. Will Ospreay will wrestle Juice Robinson, another Continental Classic match. Kyle Fletcher takes on the Beast Mortos in yet another Continental Classic match. And Hangman Adam Page takes on Wheeler Yuta. Dynamite next week has the Dynamite Dozen Battle Royal. We know of MJF, Adam Cole, and Kyle O'Reilly. They're already official for it. Pac takes on Switchblade Jay White. And Brody King will take on Claudio in a Gold League match. The Juliet, I literally just said Survivor Series starts at 6 p.m. on Saturday. So yes, Survivor Series also airs on Saturday. It's a lot of wrestling. A lot of wrestling taking place on Saturday. What did you think of the Dynamite after Full Gear? 46% thumbs up, 54% thumbs down. I'd go the inverse on that. It was definitely more of a thumbs up show this week. And a huge improvement from what we got on the show last week. One of my biggest beefs with the show last week was the fact that it was the final show before the pay-per-view. Again, as a go-home show, it was a terrible show. But this was a noticeable improvement from last week. Nobody will ever doubt that AEW has great wrestling. So when you have a wrestling-heavy show like this, and you have the people in this tournament that they have, it's pretty difficult to put on a terrible show, right? Even if it's not a great show, it was a good show. It's kind of hard to fuck that up when you take people like Shelton Benjamin and Claudio and some of the other people we're going to be seeing here, like Fletcher and Ospreay, and you put them in the ring and let them go out there and wrestle, right? It's pretty hard to mess that up. Not that it can't happen, but it's pretty hard to mess that up. Hopefully Rampage ends in January. My understanding is that Rampage is going to be done after next month. I don't think AEW has officially said anything about that, but that's my understanding. So enjoy it while you can. There probably is not that much more Rampage left to watch. Hey, Brother Fluff Salisbury. One of our early super chatters here wishing a happy Thanksgiving to everyone. Says, I got both of my kids together in my house since June. Stay safe. Yes, you too, and happy Thanksgiving, Brother Fluff. Josh Carlos with a pair of super chats. The Rizzler and Big Boom AJ I'd rather see on Dynamite than the awful Learning Tree. So would I. Big Boom AJ wrestled with a broken foot, and he won, and he finished the match, and he's coming back for more. 6 to 8 weeks he's going to be out, and he said he talked to Tony Khan already. He's coming back. He's going to be wrestling even more, which means that we're going to be getting the Rizzler. See, I could do that too. The Rizzler is going to be coming back. Can't wait. Josh also says, better movie, Ferris Bueller or Home Alone 1? Oh, they're both classics. Home Alone, man, that's quintessential Christmas movie. I'm going to go Home Alone. I like both movies, but I got to go Home Alone. Daniel Stern and Joe Pesci together in Home Alone, all their hijinks. Come on. Can't vote against that. The Real CS says, do you think the situation with Ricky Starks and Ray Phoenix will potentially push some people away from signing with AEW? Because if Tony can do it to Ricky and Phoenix, who says he won't do it again? Can it potentially push people away from AEW? Absolutely. But look at it like this. If you're looking at it from the perspective of, having the ability to work for a major promotion and also work indie dates, you can't do that in WWE. You can do that in AEW. There may be certain places you can't work. There may be certain dates you can't book if you're obligated to AEW and you got to get permission from them, however it works. But you do have that ability in WWE, you wouldn't. So how important is that to somebody? That could factor into their decision as well. But could it push people away? The answer is yes. Absolutely. Jerome Eugenio, good start to the Continental Classic tonight. Absolutely. I'm looking forward to the rest of the matches. Should be good. Oz and Glorious, 42 months of channel membership. He says, acknowledge me. You are acknowledged. Acknowledge me and my green skull, he said. You got a green skull. You might want to go to the doctor and have him check that out. That's probably not a good sign. He also says, my God, I need a 6-month break from Darby, Orange Cassidy, Jericho, and everyone else who's been having the same exact match nearly every week for 5 years straight. Sounds like you need a break from AEW, brother. Styles fan 619, I had an issue with the Continental Classic. Why is Brody King in it and not Malachi Black? Why is Mortos in it and not a great wrestler like Shibata or a rising star like Hobbs? Shibata doesn't need to be in it. Mortos being in it, Tony Khan likes the Beast Mortos, and the Beast Mortos is a very good wrestler. And we've also heard that, they have their Fox Sports deal with Mexico, and they were going to be featuring more luchadors on TV. We probably would have Hologram in this tournament. Hologram got hurt in that last match he had with Mortos. That's the only reason why Hologram is not on the show. So that alone, the fact that they might want to feature more lucha talent, especially with that TV deal they made, Mortos is going to get the nod over somebody like Shibata. You asked the question, why not Malachi? Why Brody King? I agree with you, but I would say Buddy Matthews won a 4-way match on Saturday. At the very least, if anything was at stake in that match, it should have been a spot in the Continental Classic. Why is he not in the tournament? I'm not even thinking about Malachi. Why is Buddy Matthews not in this? That would make more sense. And you heard the crowd reaction to him on Saturday, too. There could be something there with him. That's a missed opportunity not having him in this tournament. I think that's a big mistake. Bobby's World with the $21 super chat. Shout out to Base Beerus for the Adam Rose Don't Be a Lemon super chat the other night. When Rose debuted, I told my kids that guy is going to be a star. Boy, did they think I was a dumbass. Hey, I'm the one who pitched the idea months before it happened of bringing Camille into AEW as the bodyguard for Mercedes Moné. How do you think I feel right now? Base Beerus and Bobby's World, we could all hang out together. Base Beerus can buy us a beer. Make us feel better, because we both feel like a bunch of idiots. Styles fan says, by the way, I am Samoan fan 101. I changed my name WWE style. Ah. Well, good to see you, Samoan fan. I did not know it was you. Bucci 973 says, hey Solo, love the stream. It gets me through my miserable work days. I want to know your thoughts on AEW having to move their Australia show to an arena. It's embarrassing. It's embarrassing in the same way that it was embarrassing in 91 when WWE wanted to put 100,000 people in the LA Coliseum and they had to move it to the sports arena, and they had 20,000 people instead of 100,000 people. They claim bomb threat. I call bullshit. They couldn't sell enough tickets. Sometimes it's like you go big or go home, right? They tried to go big. It didn't work out. So it's embarrassing. It's a black eye for them, but they learned from their mistake. They moved the show, and I'd much rather see AEW in a, whatever it is, 13, 15,000 seat building than a 50,000 seat stadium and putting 10,000 people in it. So it was the right move, but it's embarrassing. Be calm, see clearly. Listen to the song TV Off by Kendrick Lamar. Okay, I will have to do that. Styles fan, Hook should be in the Continental Classic. Where has he been lately? I don't know. But I'd rather he not be in it. The Continental Classic is a tournament that should be reserved for people who I think it will showcase their strengths, and the strengths here is the wrestling, and Hook is not at the level of the people in this tournament. So I would rather see people in the tournament who can go. I don't look at Hook in the same class as a lot of the people that we have in this tournament. I know he's somebody that they are hoping turns into a big star, and they can maybe use it as a way to push him, but I don't think the Continental Classic is for somebody like Hook. The Original Man from Atlanta, 2025, says, that's Tony Khan's middle name. How do you F this up? What is Tony Khan's middle name? Camille? What is Tony Khan's middle name? You didn't tell me. Is Camille his middle name? George freaking Seckman says, came in a little late after eating at a Thanksgiving buffet. I'll catch up later with the rest that I missed. Happy Thanksgiving from the future in Japan. Hey, George, I hope everything is good over in Japan, and I wish you a very happy Thanksgiving. It's good to hear from you, and thank you for the support. NWO Matt, thank you for the $22 super chat. Solo, that's all he says. That's my name. George, also with a 12, says, Deja Vu. Arabian Night 2000, are you ready for Camille joining Deanna's group in Ring of Honor? Deanna has a group in Ring of Honor? It's news to me. RD Beats. Again, I read his super chat earlier. Dylan, thank you for the 50. That's the big bomb tonight. I appreciate that very much. Yuri, Triple H wishes God the best in his future endeavors. My God, they have future endeavored God. I can't wait for the shoot interview. Yuri says MJF cutting promos on God would be hilarious. Gotta be careful. You're gonna offend some people. Avwunu with the 14 says, I meant, how would you do Dom against Balor? Because I think that's the move. Best of 7, Punk versus Stone Cold, or Orton. Oh, he's continuing this from the other night. Hobbs, Takeshita, the tag division. How do you heat them up? What should Fletcher do before Ospreay 2? Fletcher is in the Continental Classic. He's going to end up meeting Ospreay in the finals if I'm booking it, and then beat him there. So that answers that question. Hobbs, the best thing to do, win. Win, and win some more. And get him on television consistently. He wasn't on the pay-per-view, and he wasn't on the show tonight, and he's not in the Continental Classic, which has me worried because the next few weeks are going to be filled with Continental Classic matches, and that might mean we're not going to get Hobbs on TV. So bringing him back and having him win one match and then not seeing him again does fuck all for Powerhouse Hobbs. Consistency and winning. That is the formula for Powerhouse Hobbs. That is how you build Powerhouse Hobbs as a potential top babyface to challenge Jon Moxley next year for the World Championship. Simple as that. This is not rocket science. You don't need to be a master of brain surgery. That's how you heat up Powerhouse Hobbs and get him over. Dom and Balor, if Dom and the rest of the Judgment Day kick Balor out of the group, Balor goes babyface, then you do Balor and Dom coming out of that. Best of 7, Punk and Stone Cold. I don't know what you're smoking. No. Okay, so he's talking about not modern day. I thought you were talking modern day. I was like, what are you smoking, brother? Best of 7, Punk against Stone Cold or Orton against Bret Hart. Orton and Bret Hart. I mean, it's not even a question. Punk and Austin are going to have a great 1 or 2 match program, 3 match program. I don't want to see them in a best of 7. The fuck do I need to see a best of 7 with those two for? That's not what that feud is designed for. Orton and Bret Hart, that's a best of 7. Brian Anthony Rivers. Everyone have a happy and safe Thanksgiving. And if anyone starts a political argument at the Thanksgiving table, leave. That's what I plan on doing. Oz Inglorious. Camille's push is over because she is a terrible wrestler. She is not the best on the women's roster, but this is what I mean when I talk about her coming in and having a certain aura about her. There are ways that you can accentuate a person's strengths and try to hide their weaknesses. And they've already killed off her strength. So good luck. That's all I have to say. Good luck. Also, who needs Buddy when you have Yuta and Garcia? He's being sarcastic. You better be sarcastic. Styles fan. I'm just upset that AEW is not using black right. Dude, I've been upset about that for 2 years now. I mean, you're preaching to the choir here. You and I are in agreement on that, and I can't explain it, but it is what it is. One of many examples of people who have been misused in that company. I did not see Bret Hart on American Dad. I heard he was on American Dad, which I think is awesome, but I have not seen it. Have you seen it? Is it any good? Casualties of gaming. What do you think happens with Danhausen once his AEW deal is up, since apparently Tony Khan wanted him to manage and he wanted to wrestle? What do I think happens with Danhausen when his deal is up? He leaves. If he's unhappy there, he leaves. That's it. He'll work independent dates. I don't see WWE having an interest, so either he's gonna take the AEW paycheck. If they'll have him, if they want to keep him, he can stay, but I don't even know if they're going to want to keep him. They're not using him. I think it's one of those things where Tony Khan doesn't want to fire the guy, so maybe they're just, he's sitting at home until his contract is up, and maybe that'll be the end. But if he's not happy there, leave. That's it. Leave and go somewhere else. Yuri, did you see the AEW close-up interview Renee did with Hobbs? Makes him even more easy to root for? I did not see it. I did not see it. And that is something, if it talks about his life story and his journey and all that, I think that they should chop that up into smaller parts and air portions of it on TV. Styles fan says, here's a Vince quote that's creepier now than when it first aired. I enjoy destroying lives. It turns me on. You know what the sad part is? That's not even the creepiest thing he's ever said. Let this be a periodic reminder that Vince McMahon is no longer in wrestling, and wrestling today is better off for it. I don't miss the old prick. The product is much better without him there. Let's hope it stays that way. Thank you guys for the messages. I appreciate it. You're currently at 360 likes. We have fallen short of the goal tonight. And here I was hoping for a Thanksgiving Be the Booker, but it's not looking so. I will be live with you on Friday. There is a SmackDown, one SmackDown left to go before Survivor Series. And we are going to get a face-to-face, I don't know if it's a sit-down interview, but there's going to be some kind of a conversation happening between Roman Reigns and CM Punk. in advance of their teaming together in War Games. So there should be much to discuss coming out of that on Friday night. Live on Friday, live on Saturday night. When Survivor Series is over, I will be live on YouTube for the full review. And then, of course, episode 890 of the podcast is coming up on Sunday. We have got Yuri coming in with a $5 super chat. Says they did that and his injury as well, and how it humbled and motivated him. Well, then they need to air some of that shit on TV. And hopefully they're only just waiting until the Continental Classic comes and goes, and maybe then they'll air it. Because that's the sort of thing, I mean, I can go on YouTube right now and watch it, which is what I'll do. But that's the sort of thing where if you're trying to get this guy over, air that shit on TV. I don't know how long the interview is. That's why I said chop it up into little parts or a condensed version. If they're serious about pushing Hobbs, though, that's the sort of thing they should do. I mean, dude, you look at this AEW roster right now. There are people who are ready to break out. Okay, Kyle Fletcher got a big win on Saturday. Now he's in this tournament. He's ready to break out. Him and Callis together. It's like, you know, when you had Paul Heyman and one of his guys, or Bobby Heenan and one of his guys. That's what Don Callis is in AEW. You know, he's their top heel manager. He has his own heel faction. And now Kyle Fletcher has become, well, arguably Takeshita, but Kyle Fletcher has become certainly one of the crown jewels of the Callis family. So he's got the heel manager who gets good heat. Fletcher is a tremendous in-ring talent. He's trying to establish his own identity. He's still young, right? He's got all the makings of potentially a big star. If they play their cards right, he's ready to break out. Powerhouse Hobbs has been ready to break out. There are people up and down this roster who are ready to break out. Does Tony Khan have the vision? Does he see what the fans see? Does he feel the same way about these people that some of us feel? I don't know. But the potential is there for some of these people, and I'm not talking WWE people. Kyle Fletcher's not a WWE guy. Hobbs is not a WWE guy. These are AEW originals in some cases who are ready to break out heading into the new year. And they could end up with a very nice mix of veteran talent and young original talent if they play their cards right. Unfortunately, the booking does not inspire a lot of confidence. I wish I could sit here and tell you that everything's going to be okay. And this guy's going to be a star, and that guy's going to be a star, but they're putting more of their focus right now on people like Wheeler Yuta and Daniel Garcia. I see greater potential in people like a Powerhouse Hobbs. And frankly, even a Kyle Fletcher. Maybe in some cases they're pushing the wrong people. But there's people up and down that card who are ready to bust out.
I'm the
Shut the fuck up. Fuck that tree. Yuri says, yep, he was openly emotional. Yeah, I'll have to check that out for sure. Oz and Glorious says, buy or sell Tony Khan's fixation with Wheeler Yuta and Garcia against Solomonster's fixation with boring Will Hobbs and Athena. Man, your taste is awful. Oz, I love you, but man, healing on Hobbs and Athena, two quality talents. I don't know what you're looking for in a wrestler, but boy, you sound lost, brother. I don't know how you can shit on Hobbs and Athena. But hey, you do you. We all have our opinions, even the ones that are bad. Retro KOH, damn, the chat is needs to pick up the like. Well, I think we actually did hit the likes goal. I'm seeing people are typing 400 in the chat, so I think we may have hit the goal after all. Yes, we did. We just hit it. We just hit the goal. He also says, Katrina cosplaying as Demolition Smash. Look behind you. Oh, he's trying to stall me, huh? Yeah. Is that supposed to get me to turn around, by the way? Katrina cosplaying as Demolition Smash in her black leather. Well, actually, that would have gotten me to turn around. The face paint would have thrown me off, though. That probably would be a turnoff. EJ Slemp. Will Solomonster be having noodle pudding tomorrow? I mean, I said I would. I mean, of course, it's Thanksgiving. It's an annual tradition. The noodle pudding will be had. By the way, when I say noodle pudding, people are always like, noodle pudding, what is that? Like, it's a dish called kugel. It's not pudding. It's not. Don't imagine pudding in your head. It's actually kind of hard. But it's noodles that are basically baked together, and it almost looks like if you cut a slice of cake, that's basically what it's like, in the shape of like a slice of pie or a slice of cake. But it's like egg noodles that are kind of matted together, and it's got some it's got cinnamon, and it's hard for me to describe because I don't make it myself. I just consume it. But it's delicious. It's delicious. And I'm going to be having some of it tomorrow, and I can't wait. I'm more excited for that than I am for Survivor Series. Devin from New Jersey, does Solo think that if Heath Ledger had lived, we would still have gotten the Oscar for the Joker? Well, we're not getting the Oscar for the Joker. I think he would have gotten the Oscar for the Joker. It's just the casserole. Well, you can call it whatever you want. It's my noodle casserole, fine. Whatever it is, it's good. Yuri says, we read that already. Ed Swoggle renewed 22 months of channel membership. The building they're running out of Phoenix in February is going to look as weird as Daly's Place set up on TV. Good. I like the way Daly's Place looks. It's a very unique setup. Good. Josiah Ball, I'm so glad that we are getting Ospreay against Okada. Are we? Because they're not in the same group. I expect that we will get it at World's End, though. And then Ospreay will beat him, and then he'll go and wrestle Fletcher. That's the way I see it. NWO Matt, how good would God against the Usos be? I don't know. I don't know how great it would. I don't think it would be great. They'd probably get good heat, though. Plays into the whole bloodline story. So, I mean, I think they'd have a good match. Probably not a great match. Oz and Glorious TNT champion Book of Hobbs was the worst.
I love you, Solo. You are my tribal chief.
Brother, you're talking about a time period where they linked him up with QT Marshall. You're going to blame that on Hobbs? Blame that on the booking. I'm not denying that. I'm just saying shitting on him outright as if it was all his fault, I think, is ridiculous. Base Beer says noodle pudding. So what? No fucking ziti? Dude, I used to love baked ziti. I used to love it. I can't have it anymore. I haven't been able to have it in 20 years, but I loved baked ziti. That was my favorite Italian dish. Broke my heart when I couldn't have it anymore. Tuxedo T Servo. Had my kids in town, so just got here. Happy Thanksgiving to Solo and those in the chat who celebrate. And Tuxedo, thank you for the super chat, and a very happy Thanksgiving to you and the kids. I hope you have a great holiday. All right, well, we did hit the goal, as I said. We didn't hit our extra goal. We're halfway to the extra goal. So it looks like only one Be the Booker tonight, but we are going to do Be the Booker. And in fact, we're going to do Be the Booker right now.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is now time to Be the Booker.
Free Ricky. There he is. There he is, everybody. Oz and Glorious says, you know who loved casserole? Joey Peeps. That is true. That is true. Well, here we go. Our one and only Be the Booker attempt here. Heading into the holiday, I want to send you off to your family this Thanksgiving season with a smile on your face. There's only one way for me to do that. It's a clean sweep. I'm going to sweep you right into Thanksgiving. We begin with the American Wolves. I like that. The American Wolves were a very good team. So I am optimistic about this. Then I'll get back to your super chats here and the ones I missed in a second. So don't worry about it, okay? Calm down. All right, the American Wolves are going to be taking on, oh my fucking God. They're going to be taking on Breezango. Why do I always do this to myself? Where I say it out loud and I jinx it. I say it out loud and we're not even doing a second Be the Booker tonight, so we can't even correct the mistake that we've made here. There's now T-minus 5 minutes left in the super chat goal. Well, so much for the clean sweep. We might be getting a sweep in the opposite direction. That's not what I wanted. That's not what I wanted. Are you surprised that I would give that the buzzer? That you think that's a big marquee match to book? The American Wolves against Breezango? What, are you fucking kidding me? Come on, man. Come on. Smarten up. Women's Be the Booker. Uh-oh. Choose 4 women and book a tag team match. Well, well, well. We're going to book ourselves a women's tag team championship match. That's what we're going to do. I've got to book 4 women now. Tony Khan is going to have a heart attack. You told him he has to book 4 women on the same show. Okay. Another tag team match. Yes, this will be our second tag team match that we're booking. All right, the first team consists of Charlotte Flair. Charlotte Flair is going to get a tag team partner. And that tag team partner is going to be Willow Nightingale. Okay, all right. How about that? Charlotte Flair and Willow Nightingale. That's a hell of a team. Big fan of Willow Nightingale. Got one of the biggest pops of the night at Full Gear when she ran in during that main event to tackle Marina Shafir. What does that tell you? Okay, Charlotte and Willow going to be taking on Eva Marie. All red everything. I mean, I just preemptively buzzed it because, I mean, of course, I'm going to give this the buzzer. Eva Marie and Tiffany Stratton. Well, you know, Tiffany Stratton on one side, Charlotte Flair on the other. You know what? I think I may have prematurely buzzed. I hate when that happens. I think I may have prematurely buzzed. So I'm going to change that. And I'm going to give it the bell. Because you got Charlotte Flair on one side. You got Tiffany Stratton on the other. I think that's going to be the WrestleMania match. Got Willow in there. There's a lot of talent in that match. So the referee's decision is not final. I have reversed my decision. I think that's the first time I've ever done that in Be the Booker. See, you guys bore witness to a first. Be the Booker history. They can carry Eva. Well, no, I mean, it's a tag team match, so you just keep, exactly, you just keep her on the apron. Yeah, they could power bomb her through the table or something, and she could just lay on the outside. And that's right. See, now you have somebody in the match who could do the job when it's over. All right, main event time. We begin with the former and future AEW World Heavyweight Champion, Hangman Adam Page. Loving this new Hangman character. This man is obsessed. Obsessed, I tell you. Hangman Page. One-on-one with Big Bronson Reed. We were close. We were close to a clean sweep. Were it not for the men's tag team match, we would have had it. So we actually ended up doing pretty well, I would say. Big Bronson Reed and Hangman Adam Page. In the main event. That is a good match. I like that match. I can dig that. EJ Slemp with the $4.99.
I love you, Solo. You are my tribal chief.
This will be the first year since AEW was founded where I did not go to a live show. That includes 2020. I'm one of the former diehards that they alienated. Well, that's a problem. Because if you're out there, then I'm sure there are others like you who are out there. Clearly, there are others like you who are out there because, as I mentioned earlier in the stream, they struggle to even get 4,000 people in Chicago of all markets, which is their market. That means there are not as many people going to the shows. So, EJ, you are not alone. Oz and Glorious. I mentioned the Joey Peeps one. NWO Matt is insistent that that was a bell. No, it wasn't. No, it was not. Scott Woodford, channel member for 44 months. Says, I got the CM Punk belt today. That's right, Scott was getting the custom CM Punk belt. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, I heard that it spins. I hope that's not the case. If it is, I would tell you to burn it. Hopefully the belt doesn't spin. Belts should not spin. Tires spin. Belts should not spin. Boots. Do the Cons own Daly's Place, or can GCW do a show there? I think they have some ownership in it, but GCW is not doing a show at Daly's Place. And Styles fan, first time you premature buzzed was Dixie against Linda. I have no memory of that. But you telling me that I premature buzzed for Dixie, I can believe that. I can believe that. Shout out to Dixie Carter. She and I share a birthday. We share a birthday with Bruno Sammartino. What a trio. The belt does indeed spin. Well, you got to burn it. Sorry, brother. You got to set that thing on fire.
I am the Lord.
Shut the fuck up. Fuck that tree. Matt wants to know, why do you hate Breezango? Because they're a jobber team. I just, if I have a preliminary match I want to book, I'll put them in the preliminary match. I'm not gonna book them in a match on my pay-per-view. I'm sorry. And I was a huge Tyler Breeze fan with his original gimmick when he was a single star in NXT. I love that version of Tyler Breeze. Huge Tyler Breeze mark back in NXT. Breezango, I never got it. I was never into it. It wasn't for me. Yuri says, not hating on GCW, I enjoy a lot of talents there, but why would they think WWE or AEW would sabotage? They let talents work there all the time. Well, I mean, that goes back, and this is not even about the Ricky Stark stuff. That goes back when the GCW owner was complaining days ago about Tony Khan booking Hammerstein a month before he was scheduled to run Hammerstein, and that's not nice, and there's an unwritten rule. And as I said on the podcast, I go, brother, All you had to do was have it written into the contract that you made with Hammerstein if you were so worried about something like that happening. And maybe he genuinely didn't think it was going to happen, but it did. You know? If you put together a card that people want to see, they'll buy tickets to go to your show. And if you don't, they won't. That's it. And the idea that AEW did that to try to sabotage GCW intentionally, give me a fucking break. Scott says it spins. Can't you take out the mechanism, though? Isn't there a mechanism in there that if you remove it, it won't spin anymore? You should be able to make it not spin. It's not a fidget spinner. It's a championship belt. Power Spying Games. There was a premature buzz for Bad Bunny and Macho Man once. Also, Giant Gonzalez and Hollywood Rock, believe it or not. You have a better memory about these matches than I do. I have no memory. I booked a match with Bad Bunny and the Macho Man Randy said, there's no fucking way I booked that match. I didn't book that match. Kevin, oh my God. Happy Thanksgiving. Thankful for all of your hard work. Well, at least somebody appreciates it. Kevin, thank you very much. I wish you a very happy Thanksgiving. I hope that you eat lots of food and spend lots of time with family. And enjoy the day. Joey says, WWE loves spinner belts, and I love a hammer. Smashy, smashy. Hey, film it. Film it and upload it. It's like Mr. Perfect when he took a hammer to the Winged Eagle belt on Saturday night's main event. EJ says, the spinner belt is not a bad design if it didn't spin. No, I hated the design. The spinning makes it worse, but I always thought the Cena belt was garbage. And anytime anybody other than Cena held it, it was like a piece of my soul died. Like Triple H when he had it, or I just thought that belt was garbage. You would never prematurely buzz Randy Savage. Exactly. Well, he may be saying that I prematurely hit the buzzer if I hit Bad Bunny first, and then I hit Savage. But if I landed on Randy Savage, there's no way I would ever prematurely hit the buzzer. Like, that just wouldn't happen. In fact, I was spending part of my afternoon today while I had lunch watching the Macho Man Randy Savage mixtape that they put on the WWE Vault channel. I think they uploaded that like a week or two ago. I'm still working my way through it. It's 3 hours long. It's just a collection of random Savage promos and segments and matches from WWE and WCW. I mean, there's some stuff in there. They have a match. It's incomplete, so there's no finish. They cut away in the middle of the match and they put a message on the screen that says this is the most complete version of the match that we have. But it's a match I don't think I ever saw, and I remember seeing a photo of it in an old WWF magazine. And it was a match from 1991, a singles match with Savage against The Undertaker. And I remember that photo. He had Undertaker by the hair, and he was about to run and do the thing where he jumps over the rope and kind of drapes him neck first. I'm like, what is this match from? So I finally got to see at least part of that match. 85% of which was Undertaker just choking him and smothering him on the mat. So that's on there. There's some good shit on there. They have some, every now and then they'll cut to like an outtake of him when he was filming like sound bites for the video game. And, it's actually acting like a human being and laughing. And it's just cool. It's just cool stuff. So anyway, yeah, if you didn't see it, that's up on the Vault channel. Savage versus Undertaker is now in full. What do you mean now? The match is not in full. The match is not in full. If you know, if it's in full somewhere, you let me know. But they literally put a message on screen saying this is the most complete version of the match that we have. So it ain't full. Richie, what's going on? Richie says there was another message. Let me see. Let me take a look. I see it. Richie says, do you think that we will ever see an Austin and Rock face-to-face in the ring? If not, what would have been the perfect time for it to happen? The perfect time for it to happen would have been in April of 2024 at WrestleMania this year in Philadelphia. And they didn't do it. Austin just had his reasons for not going. It sucks. It's a moment that now has been forever lost. It was perfect. I mean, it was basically like the WWE version of the Avengers Assemble, where you had Cody against Roman, and then you had John Cena comes out, The Rock comes out. It ended with Undertaker instead, but it should have been Austin. And I think their plan was for it to be Austin, and he shot it down, whatever his reasons were. I know he doesn't really want to leave Nevada at this point, which is why he said we'll probably see him at WrestleMania next year, because WrestleMania is going to be in his backyard. But he just may not want to travel, to go from West Coast to East Coast. I get it, but man, that would have been such an unbelievable moment for him. The glass to shatter at that moment. He marches down, gives Rock one last stunner. Rock does his oversell of the stunner. It's just such a missed opportunity. It's just such a missed opportunity. So it should have been then, to answer your question. Maze DeGreat. The Jeff Hardy TNA belt is the ugliest belt ever to me. It was not the best belt, but I don't hate that belt in the way that some people did. I've seen worse. Don't forget Jey Uso and Shield Rollins came out. That's right. Yes, Jey Uso came out. Seth Rollins came out. It really was. It was like their version of the Avengers. And so how are you going to do that and not have Austin, of all people, show up? But sometimes it's just not in WWE's control. They wanted him there, and, they couldn't make it happen. So what are you going to do? Oh, man. Styles, I mentioned your Dixie chat. I mentioned that several minutes ago. We've all commented on it. This was like WWE's version of Endgame. I didn't see Endgame, so I saw the first Avengers movie. That was it. So you would be more well-versed in the other Avengers movie than I would be. Movies. The other ugliest belt ever to me is the Divas Championship. Ah, yes. The butterfly belt. Not the best design. The Tommy Dreamer Hardcore title was horrendous. A giant New York license plate. Oh, man. Well, thank you guys for spending your Thanksgiving Eve, or part of it anyway, with me. I appreciate that. Much love here this holiday season. And wishing you all a very happy Thanksgiving. I will see you back here live on Friday night for SmackDown, and then Saturday night. Don't forget, early start time for Survivor Series of 6 p.m. So my guess is we'll be live on the channel maybe 9:30ish, probably sometime around then. The full Survivor Series War Games recap. Looking forward to it. It's going to be fun. Will we see The Rock? Will the final boss make an appearance on Saturday? Leave a comment. Chime in and let me know. I will see you guys back here on Friday night for SmackDown. Until then, happy Thanksgiving.